We always do a little bit of housekeeping at the beginning, and that is asking people who that are new and haven't been here or are new since the last staff development, if you will stand up and introduce yourself. So anybody who's new since the last, that's never been to a staff development, introduce themselves. If you can stand up.
Hi, I'm Zach Levere. I'm the departmental IT specialist for the Office of Undergraduate Admissions.
All right, welcome. Anybody else that's new since the last one? And I wasn't here at the last one. Okay, great, right up here. Stand up and introduce yourself.
Good morning, I'm Rosetta Flores, I'm in the financial aid department assistant.
Welcome. Anyone else? Okay, great. Well, welcome to the two new people, and welcome back to everyone else. Really glad to have you here. We are, this day is the one that we're going to do what every year in April will be called the State of the Division of the University. When we did the Engage West survey last time, there was a need to have a more direct and coordinated staff development time. And as Terry and all the people that have been involved in developing this staff development meeting in terms of the content and the context, as we were doing that, it became necessary for us to have at least one time or two times a year where I will stand up and I'll kind of go through some things that are kind of the state of the union type of thing. So what does a state of the division or university do? Well, first of all, we're going to be talking a little bit about information about where we are, where we've been, provide a little bit of vision for the future, but that doesn't happen as much now as it will probably in the fall. And then celebrate our accomplishments, which we're already doing with the news and noteworthy a little bit, and then understand what we can do better. We're going to spend just a very little time, maybe even no time on that part, because you're doing that right now in your departments as you are finishing out your year, doing your goals, understanding what you've accomplished, and going into your next goals for the next year. So that's part of your assessment. So you know that as you think about a State of the Union, the president, when he stands up to the joint session of Congress in January, almost always the very first thing that the president says is, "The state of our union is strong." And then there's a great big round of applause, and everybody stands up, and it's 15 minutes until he begins to think again. So I'm going to say that for our division. The state of the Division of Student Affairs and Enrollment Management is strong. There you go. Now, all of you Democrats, you can stand up and applaud. All you Republicans, you can just sit there and nod your head. But so why are we strong? So there are some things. Certainly record enrollment last year. There we go. We have strong leadership. We've been doing a great job of hiring people. We're working a little bit, and I'll talk later about our hiring protocol, but we have great people in our division. Definitely student outcomes, successful programs. We've been doing just great work in terms of preparing ourselves and preparing our students, working on student success. Relationships across campus are getting better. Again, a lot of the things we're doing with Engage West and Best of the West, those are creating better relationships across campus and in the USG with other institutions. We have great relationships with the Board of Regents and our legislators. We did very, very well this year. We don't know our final USG budget, but we did very well in terms of the state budget. We got our biology building in that we've been working for about 15 years on getting that in, and we got the design money this year, but that means that they are also going to be willing, hopefully, next year to give us about $18 million to renovate a biology building. So we have great relationships there. We've had a year of Engage West. That has created a vibrancy in our division, vibrancy of campus life, certainly. Final Four football team, you know, the champions in both basketball and in football, the champion, the number one team in the country that won both of those beat us to get there. And so we're in a place, and that's not in the early season, that was in the late season, that was in the tournament to be able to get there. They had to go through us. And then we've made lots of progress on our strategic priorities. One of the things I want to highlight that is just way out there, you don't see this from many institutions in 1 year. We had a 3.4 point or percentage point jump in retention. 3.4. There you go, Mr. Democrat or the Republican, I don't care which one. But anyway, that represents about 75, 80 students that we now have that we wouldn't have had if we had our old retention rate. And think about the trajectory of those people's lives and the difference. Even if they don't finish with us, think about the difference we're making in that life. And so those are some of the things that the state of the division and the university is very, very strong. So we have some other things to celebrate. And when I started thinking about what I was going to do with this, I talked with John and Alicia, and one of the things is there are some really shocking statistics, or very interesting statistics. And I asked the directors and others about those, and I got a lot of these, so I didn't include all of them, but here are some that I think you'll be interested in. Student volunteer hours. This is actually a scorecard item. Someone's going to applaud already. Right. 1,861 students, over 12,000 hours. We equate that to money because those hours are worth something, $277,000 worth of volunteer hours just in the students. We haven't even counted ours yet. Okay, that's what we've contributed to the local economy. So you can go ahead and applaud that if you like. Absolutely. We have 4 students that are receiving the Presidential Volunteer Award, and there are lots of different criteria for that. Never happened at West Georgia before, mostly because we haven't been counting it, right? So that's a big deal, and Dustin's done a great job with that. Call center numbers. I wanted to give you 31,000 between January and March of this year. Last July we had 30,000 calls, almost 31,000. Total of 2014, 150,000 calls that the call center has received. We're clapping because of the calls your office did not get. That's why we're calling. So thank you for everyone that's contributing to that. And advising 2958 total appointments with 2252 students. That's great, but this is even more important. The retention rate, 87% for those students versus 71% for students that aren't advised. That means something, right? For the past 2 years, our division has been in the top 30 for last year and the top 15 most promising places to work in student affairs, as noted by APTA. That's a big deal. Center for Academic Success, tutoring appointments, 5,395 this year. They're not even done yet. That's an increase of 88%. Amazing. Amazing what works are happening here. Housing and Residence Life, they have an $800,000 student payroll in Housing Residence Life. Think about, there you go. Think about the resources that gives to our students to be able to stay here and be students and to be great in terms of the training. They also do an additional $85,000 in scholarships. I thought we had $100,000 in scholarships, but they must not have given them all out. But that's okay. That's okay. $85,000. That's great. That we're there we go. That's helping our districts too, right? Financial aid distributes more than $120 million every year in financial aid. So great stuff there. And certainly in my case, we're celebrating both experienced and new employees to the division. We have some employees that have been here quite a long time, some that haven't been here anywhere near that amount of time, and we're going to figure that out right now. Remember yesterday on that email I asked you to bring your phones. I want you to go ahead and get those out. I'm going to give you permission, should you choose to use it. You don't have to use your texting or data allowance to do this, but you can choose. And so what I want you to do is I want you to text the word in all caps, SLINGRELL, to 2233. Okay, so do that right now. SLINGRELL. If you don't know, that is my email address. 22333. Did I say something different? Yeah, 22333. Once you've done that, you've joined Scot Lingrell's session. When you're done, reply leave. And I don't want you to reply leave through this whole session, because I want you to remain active during this time. If you do reply leave, then you'll have to log back in and do it again. So has somebody gotten already that message that says you've joined Scot Lingrell's? Okay, so some people have, some people aren't quite there yet. Okay, so what I want you to do once you are logged into this, I want you to tell me how many years you have worked at UWG. So if you've worked 2 years or less, you would do A. Thought that was going to tell us, but 2 years or less, A. 2 to 5 years, text B. 6 to 9 years, text C. 10 to 12 years, text D. 13 to 16 years, text E. And 17 or more years, you get an F. I mean, you have to text F. At the top that says respond@pollev.com/Lingrell. You can do that on the web. Okay? So there we are. As of right now, and again, there may be some of you that haven't finished, but this is what, hello. This is what our division looks like in terms of the number of people at certain years at West Georgia. Yeah, you can just put it back here in the corner someplace. That's great. Thank you for doing that. Okay, so look at that. Who are the employees, and if you don't want to identify yourself, that's fine, that have worked here 17 or more years? Go ahead and stand up. Okay, good. Yeah. Says 3 and 5. We have 5 or 6. Okay, so that's great, right? But one of the things this is showing us that we have a whole lot of people in that 5 or less years range, right? So you have to respond as a division maybe a little differently in terms of training and development and those kind of things. We're going to talk about some of those things. Glad we got the technology to go. Okay, so most of the rest of the time I want to talk about Engage West, because that has consumed us a little bit over this amount of time, right? We've had a lot of things going on in Engage West, really under 2 different areas, the survey and then leadership development. So I want to spend a little time on those. So we had, once we had the survey last year, we had action plans at the departmental level and then at the division level. And you saw the email this morning. We have our second set of survey data available at the institutional level today, and the managers and supervisors would get that in hour 1, and then the rest of the university in hour 2. So we're learning about it at the exact same time that you are too. Okay. So action plans at both the department and division level. I want to remind you about the department or the division level action plan. These are things that when you gave your responses, we came together as a division leadership team and decided what I would do and what the division would do to make this place a better place and more engaging. And I just want to go over that and do a little bit of a summary of that, okay? So the first area was transparency and communication. And what we decided to do are the 4 things on the screen. So the breaking down the division emails, at that time we called it This Week in SAEM, changed the title for it. But I've been doing those periodically. One of the things it wasn't a weekly thing because there really wasn't enough content to do this every week and you'd been bored and all that. So I decided I really wanted longer emails. And that's why we did it. If you can imagine even a longer email. Cascading communication. At every division leadership team meeting, we spend time at the end, which is what information do we need to pass on, and in what form do we need to do that? And that is a way to get communication down to you in ways that you can digest it, that you're able to use it in your everyday work. Requiring University Matters agenda item. That's one of the things. As we went out to your areas, we said, okay, directors, you need to then find a way to communicate in your area what the general university matters were, because the Engage West survey said you weren't getting that information in a way that helped you learn about the university and understand that, again, we were trying to be transparent, but you weren't getting that information. It wasn't a matter of us wanting or not to get that information to you, it's that there wasn't a mechanism to do it. So that's another mechanism. And then I'm doing the last one right now. That item said that I would stand up twice a year, once each term, and do a statement of the division. And so that's happening right now. The second thing was division culture, civility, and treatment. And the items, you can see them up on the board that we decided for me and the division to do are to come to your department meetings. I think we've been at least once to every department meeting. Sometimes we've been twice, and I think maybe even some of them we've been a 3rd time now, even since last spring. VP says birthday work anniversary emails. I have to confess, I'm usually late with these. But many times I'm not. I think for Tracy's, I think I got it right on the day. And he asked about the birthday cake, and I said, well, I had birthday cake. I don't know about you. No, I didn't say that. But again, that's been something that I've been paying attention so that I get to know you a little better through those emails. Division-wide get-together each term. We had one in the fall. We're going to have one again in May. And that is being planned. It's going to be late in May. And then celebrating accomplishments, and you already saw an example of that, the news and noteworthy right from the beginning. We're doing that during the staff development, but also as they come about, you get emails, you get communication in your departments and from the division office for that. Consistency in hiring. This is one we haven't moved as quickly on, but things are now coming together. The development and instituting a hiring protocol. In the final stages, doing all of the committees led by Beth is in the final stages doing all the research on that. They talked to all of the directors about how that happens in your departments. That's all coming together so that we can actually create a more consistent way of hiring people across the division. And then communicating that. Doesn't exist yet. We will communicate it when it happens. But that will also include, there are certain nuances. It's a little different to hire a nurse than it is a activities director at the campus center, right? So there will be nuances that you can put into that in your department. Announcing all new employees. I've really asked the directors to be consistent with this, and that is that there is some sort of announcement out when new employees come on that kind of give the qualifications of that person. One of the things that came up in the Engage West survey was maybe the selection of people, they aren't as qualified as other people might be, right? So one of the things that we've been clear to do is kind of outline the qualifications of the person so that you understand we're making good employment decisions. Consistent onboarding process. We've done the new employee orientation for now a year, and I think people have benefited from that. Few foibles. Some people didn't get their parking pass, ahead of time. The person who was supposed to pick up the packet didn't pick up, all those kind of things. But we work through those issues. But I think that's been a good thing. I do a monthly, mostly monthly, lunch with new employees. And I am really encouraged by the feedback we're getting about how that's going and how that's making you feel like you're a better part of our division. And then creating an individual professional development plan. That's happening right now during your evaluations. Your directors and your supervisors should be using a form that actually sends you through the process of defining a professional development plan for this next year. And that's going to be a big part of their responsibility of helping you to develop professionally and what resources need to go along with that. We really heard your feedback in the Engage West survey that said, I don't feel like I'm getting that professional development, or it's not applying to my advancement in my job or at the university. And so, again, we try to put things into place that are going to help with that. And so, creating the other side of this then is about once every 3 months, your leaders have left your departments and they have come to, mostly in this room, something called the Leadership Development Institute, an LDI. You may have heard that terminology, LDI. And what I've really learned lately is that may be a little bit of a mystery to people. What in the world do they do when they go away to the LDI, right? How is it affecting me? How is it going to make a difference in our department? So those are some of the things up there that we're doing in the LDIs. And many of you are involved in that, but those of you who aren't, there's no more mystery. This is what's happening in the LDI. A lot of it has to do with goal setting. A lot of it has to do with making ourselves better as leaders personally, a personal leadership development piece. And we're starting to see some benefits of that. The most important piece, I think, at this point is the last one. And that is holding leaders accountable. One of the things we have been doing for a long time at the institution is essentially any problem that gets sticky, we're sending it clear up. Sometimes straight to the president, many times to the vice president, instead of requiring those leaders in the department to handle sticky issues. And leaders in departments are paid for to handle sticky issues. It's not that I don't want to, it's that there should be a level of leadership that can do that at your department at a director level. And that's what we're learning in these LDIs, to be able to handle those types of issues and then holding people accountable for those things. You're going to see some of that probably in the evaluation process of this year. You know, I can't evaluate, and Alicia and John can't evaluate all of you. That's someone else's job and understanding of you, so therefore they have to take responsibility for that knowledge. And they have to be held accountable for it, right? And so that's part of that leadership development. That is making leaders better so that we have a broader university understanding of what leadership is. Okay? So we're going to do a little bit of there we go. We're going to do an exercise. So I want you to spread out a little bit. Well, not you guys don't spread out anymore. You guys may need to spread out a little bit. But get in groups of 3 or 4. And I want you to talk about those things that are different now than they were a year ago. Now, some of you haven't been here a year. So listen to the people around you. Or think about what's different since you got here. Okay? Some of you, that's only been 2 days. So I hope there isn't a whole lot different since Monday. But anyway, talk about that. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to discuss that. I will then turn the next slide, which will open the poll, and then I want you to then give me a couple of words that describes that positive thing or that change that you have seen. Just a couple of words, not full sentences, just a couple of words or one word that describe that. And then you'll see the magic that happens. Okay, so go ahead, break down into 3 or 4, and talk about those things. Okay, you don't have to stop, but I know there are some of you that if you get to talking, you'll forget those things and won't put them up here, so we're going to open the poll. We're going to open the poll. Look at that, Lingrell, right in the middle. I don't know how that happened. I think it was me testing it the other day. Sorry. There we go. Lingrell got smaller. Keeps getting smaller. Keep texting your things in. We'll see what happens around this. Now, just because the word communication is big on there doesn't mean you can text it again and again and again. You only get one chance. So if your group had more than one, though, more than one people can go ahead and text this in. Okay, and that keeps changing because people are still texting. Oh, look, some other. It changed its focus there. Okay, I do want you to know that the Lingrell, I only put it in once. So it shouldn't be that big. So some of you have actually put Lingrell in. Ah, there it goes. It's getting smaller. Getting smaller. Okay, so I'm going to stop anybody if you haven't done your text, I'm going to ask you to stop that. Okay. I don't know how to stop it, just like you know. I have no idea. This is new technology. Okay, I think we figured it out. So let's look at the word cloud here. Sustainability is in there. Recognition, better. It looks like maybe better partnerships. Pace, accountability are some of the smaller ones. But look at the bigger ones. Look at the bigger ones. And absolutely no question in this word cloud, the word that you said the most in here was communication. And that was what this entire year was about in terms of the Engage West results. The very first one, communication and transparency. Exponential, I don't know what that means. Exponential hiring, exponential something, but that's great. Anybody want to offer what the second word there might have been? Exponential growth, maybe? Smiles, I love, and then T-Ducker. Right there. And that definitely is a positive thing. Did you do that? Twice! Great. That is awesome. I couldn't speak to that any better. I really appreciate that. That is awesome. That makes me feel very good. Collaboration, growth. So what do you know about this? And we haven't done a whole lot of communicating out to the whole division some of the things the leadership team's been doing around creating clarity and over communicating clarity. But what do you see directors specifically on this that we've been working on?
I think that element has been really helpful, because it helps us know what's going on in the division.
So the communication that is the huddle notes. So we've been sending out pack notes. Some directors have, some haven't. We've been sending out legislative updates to the directors. Some of them sent them on, some of them haven't. So we've been doing a much better job of communication. But what I see up here, I really see our divisional values. They are reflected in this word cloud. And I can't tell you how that makes me feel that we are actually living what we're saying we're living. Growth and development, collaboration, and what's the other one, directors? Caring, right? Because, and caring's not up there, it's just assumed in our division, right? Just assumed. But that's happening. Positivity. I love the little thing over here, money. Partnerships are in there, accountability, paperwork is in there too. So we'll try to do that, but as a positive thing. I don't know what that really means. So, but anyway, that gives you an idea as to what you've experienced positively over this last year. We'll continue these types of things and refocus some things that they can even be better. So we still have a lot to do. We're in the process of finalizing this year and then starting a new year, and we will have new goals. Probably more than likely, we're going to have very, very similar goals, and we'll work on the next level of accomplishing those, right? We never want to rest on a retention rate. It's in the scorecard, you know, we hit this rate, which is good for this year, but next year there's going to be a different rate that we want to hit. Same way with enrollment, same way with a lot of things that we're doing. Making a lot of changes in advising and other services based on data. SSC stands for excuse me, the Student Success Collaborative. We're in a place right now where we are actually now utilizing 10 years of our past data and the analysis of that through this company called the Education Advisory Board to look at, okay, this is the profile of successful students and not successful students. Now let's look at our current students and kind of compare that, and then help our current students overcome some of the barriers that we know that other students weren't able to because we didn't have the programs and services to do that back then, right? So that's part of what Student Success Collaborative does. We're going to finalize, and notice this word, hardwire our hiring practice, okay? You may be hearing this word a lot more in this next year, the concept of hardwiring something. That is very much a Studer word, okay? It's the Studer company and that we've been using as our consultant in the Engage West piece. That there are certain behaviors that organizations do that we know create the outcomes that we want in terms of engaged employees, and we want to hardwire those. Now, to some, that sounds like a lack of flexibility. That sounds like we're not giving you autonomy when we hardwire something and make advising do the same thing as some other department, university recreation, right? But the Studer piece has really shown us and I went to the most recent Studer conference. It has shown us that there are about 5 behaviors that organizations can do. And if you do those 5 behaviors and you essentially all of you do them, then it grows exponentially in your ability to have engaged employees meet the students' needs. Students' success is our business, and therefore it goes out in that way. I'll give you an example of one that we will end up doing this next year. There is a concept called rounding. Now, those of you that are familiar with healthcare, concept of rounding is essentially going around and asking questions and doing behaviors that get information and that help you do the next thing that you do, right? You know, if you are rounding in healthcare, you may be taking vitals. That gives you information about what the next thing you might do with that patient. Well, in our context, rounding is leadership coming to you and saying, how are things going? Do you have the tools you need to accomplish the job that you've been expected to do? What are the barriers that you have to doing your job the best that you possibly can do? Are the expectations for your position set effectively? Is your leadership and management treating you in a way that makes you feel as part of the team? That is what rounding is. And in this next year, we will, in terms of leadership, we'll be doing that. So I don't want you to be surprised at that when I come into your area or John comes into your area and says, so Tracy, tell me a little bit about what you're doing this week. And so do you have everything you need? to do your job effectively? Okay, right. So you can see how that could be a little threatening to an employee. Might be a little bit threatening to a supervisor. But if we don't have that information, right? You're out there just kind of languishing and not doing what you need to do. The example that Studer gives in his book is that when he started doing this as a hospital administrator, he found out that there was a really unhappy floor of nurses. So the way nursing works, you know, there are kind of pods of nurses that work in a certain area or in a floor or whatever. And they were really unhappy and really grumpy and, you know, all that kind of thing. And he did this rounding and found out it was as simple as putting a copy machine in their area. Instead of making them walk clear down to the other nurse's station to make copies. Right? Now that sounds silly, but that's a work, that's a type of thing that is really easy to do to get you the tools that you need. And you could probably, if we open this up, you could tell me 25 things right now that we could do with that, right? We need to know that so we can put our resources into place that will make your job easier. And the end product is not just you have easier jobs. The end product is you have more time to spend with students, to make them more successful, to give them an experience where they will stay, they will graduate, and they will change their lives by graduating with a degree from West Georgia. So that's the end product. Continued leadership development. We're going to continue to do LDIs. New people are coming in all the time. Leadership development, I have said quite often that every problem is a leadership problem. Taking on the responsibility of that in leadership is important for us. Not shifting the responsibility to other things that may be excuses. And everything focused on engagement so we can continue to do the student success piece. That's the important piece. Student success. Without the students, we're not here. If they're not successful, we're not successful. That's just the game. Another poll. So we talked earlier about professional development and that we have a real focus on that in this year, especially with evaluation. So I want to ask you a question. How much do you think we spend in a year as a division on professional development and travel? The reason I'm asking this question is because on the Engaged West survey this last year, in the year that I'm talking about, we got a lot of people saying, I don't feel like I have the appropriate professional development. I don't feel like we have resources in our department for professional development. Okay? Now, I'm going to ask the directors who have gotten a preview of this not to respond. Directors, you already know a number. That number's wrong, but I'm going to ask you not to respond. Okay? So we're going to open up this poll, and I want you to go ahead and give your guess. Okay? So A, B, C, D, and E. I want you to go ahead and do that. And the timer says 1 minute and 15 seconds left. Well, come on, someone guess E. Just for fun. All right, yes! What was that comment? Miss Sarah, do you have something to say? Oh, that was a reimbursement amount. That wasn't what we spent. That was just how much you got reimbursed. That's great. Okay, we have 41 seconds left. Okay, they don't look like they're changing much, so I'm going to go ahead and talk over it. You guys are right. At least 41 of you are, which is the big, largest single percentage. $354,000 in travel, registrations, sometimes local resources in terms of books or things that are local. Okay. How many people is $354,000? Okay, some math whiz, let's just say we're paying somebody, and salary and benefits, $45,000 total, salary and benefits. How many people is $354,000? 7.8. Mr. Spreadsheet over here calculated, okay? We could actually have 7, almost 8 more people in our division, which would go a long way, but we've chosen the priority of professional development. Now, can we be more efficient with it? Sure we can. We can do a lot more with it. But I want that to be really, really clear as we go out through this year. We are doing the investment. If you don't feel it in your area, we need to talk about with your directors why you're not feeling it. Don't talk about it with me necessarily, because most of this happens at the division or at the department level. But why is that? Okay? Is it your directors taking all that money and you don't get any? Probably not. Is the vice president's office taking all that money and you don't get any? No, it's probably not. So let's find ways to do that. In all of nature, if you are not growing, you're dying. And I firmly believe this, that you'll never believe what I was doing last night when I went home from the university after I prepared this presentation, because I had crazy things happening yesterday that I had to stay around last night to get this done. I was reading a book. The book's called Chess Not Checkers. It's by Mark Miller, who is the VP of Professional Development, VP of Training for Chick-fil-A Company. Okay? Chess Not Checkers. I'm talking about leadership development. And so what I'm asking you for is a philosophy of your own personal development, just like we have as our division value, growth and development. That isn't just so that we can create growth and development in students. I'm asking you to do that. One of the things that I ask when I interview people is, what have you done in the last 3 weeks for your own personal leadership development? I ask that question of them in the interview. Okay? So that is definitely a value, and you need to think about that, and we're definitely going to invest in it. But it needs to be honed, it needs to be directed, and that's why we're doing the experience during the evaluations this year about professional development. Discussion with the supervisor, we talked about it. Position profiles in Develop West. We have a great resource. I haven't been in it enough to look around, but that Develop West resource, you would have gotten emails about this. You can go out and do your own searching on that. In your discussions with your supervisor, you can search it and find things that will lead to your own professional development. And I believe in this next year we'll make movement towards there being a certain suite of development, suite S-U-I-T-E, of development resources within each position. So as a departmental associate, what should you know and do? And are there resources then in Develop West to be able to get you there? Now, you know that the materials handling, data, sheet stuff, university required trainings are also going to be part of that, because we have a focus on those too. But what are you doing to develop yourself? Also want to create a little different definition of professional development. When people think about professional development, they think about going away to a conference. And what we miss in that is that they go away to the conference, have the experience, have the learning, they may bring back a couple nuggets, but they bring back those nuggets for themselves, may not then share those with other people. Some of your departments may have mechanisms for you to do this, and I think that's great. Well, I want to hardwire that a little more. I'm not saying it's going to be required in this next year, but that may be something you experience, that when you go away to a conference, since we're investing in you to do that, that you would bring that knowledge back and share it among your peers, right? And that there's a mechanism, there's a way for you to do that. And so I want you to think about that a little bit. So if conference is the way of professional development, then there needs to be a sharing of that information with people that didn't go. But it's more than just a conference. We have lots of resources in the division that we're putting towards professional development, we can bring people in here that all of us can't go to a conference to see. We can do a lot more of that. Instead of listening to me drone on during a staff development, and Terry's helped a lot with, and Maggie has helped a lot with not having me as the featured speaker most times. We can bring other people, maybe like Mark Miller, who is, again, one of my leadership heroes. He writes great stuff. There's a daily blog that I look at every day, and it really can then heighten our own professional development.